Okay, what do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
All right, yo, let's get into it.
Try to take over the world.
Preaching freedom.
Try to take over the world.
And greatest chaplain in the world, Mr.
Try
Lance
to
O'Neill.
take over the world.
Yo, what up, world? It's your boy KJ Bradley. I'm a little raspier today. Voice is a little hoarse, but that's all right. We still gonna make it through. And we got some guests in the building. I'm always accompanied by the greatest chaplain in the world. What up, chaplain? How you doing,
KJ?
And today, for those that don't notice, we have a friend of the show who came back today, Miss Allison McPherson. How are you? Welcome.
I'm doing good. Excited to be here.
It has been way too long since we had you on, so really excited, really excited. Let's say we dive in, shall we?
Let's do it.
Right. So here we go. I think something happened tragic this week in America. We lost I guess controversial would be a fitting word, social commentator this week to a tragedy in Utah. And that's kind of sent the nation, well, let's just say the nation's had some mixed responses. What are your thoughts? Let's talk about it.
One of the things that I want to start out with is this, because the thoughts and prayers to his family, of course, that goes without saying. Let me say my position first. I agreed with Charlie Kirk on a lot of what he said, not everything, but a lot. But what I did really agree with was how he engaged with people. I think being willing to go to college campuses and invite people. And if you watch the videos, he generally would say, if you disagree with me, come up. You come up here and you talk to me. And when I see people celebrating the death of this man who's married, has 2 small children, I would hope that any conservative, if the leading commentator on the left, and I was trying to think who the equivalent would be, it'd probably be somebody like Rachel Maddow. If Rachel Maddow were murdered in cold blood, well, let me just make the point. If Rachel Maddow were murdered in cold blood, I would be just as ticked off as anybody on the right saying, well, she deserved it, or she said this, or there is no place in our country for killing somebody because you disagreed with their opinions. And that's where, there's a long history of this. Martin Luther King being gunned down for his preaching and his teaching, not for actions, not because he went out and hurt somebody else, but because what he said. That was wrong then. JFK. I heard a really great line. The people that have professed to coming together and to be peaceful and to love your neighbors seems to be the ones who get killed. And the examples were Jesus and Gandhi and Martin Luther King, Robert Kennedy Jr., JFK. And you see this, and it's a really sad situation because whatever you think of Charlie Kirk, I have yet to see a video where he comes out and says, yeah, that group, yeah, something needs to be done about them. He says, well, I don't agree with it. I don't agree with the lifestyle, but that's my opinion. And for somebody to get murdered for their opinion, then the left to say, people on the left who are upset that they got fired, well, freedom of speech. It's like, well, you know what? You're not upset. You weren't upset that a man died for freedom of speech and you're getting fired for freedom of speech. Well, let's remember there's a difference between freedom of speech and speech without consequences. 2 very different things. And KJ, you knew I have hit this point many, many times. Freedom of speech does not mean you get to say whatever you want, whenever you want, and not have those consequences. And I think that Charlie Kirk being assassinated for his viewpoint is just another dark day in America. It's not because of anything more than he was sharing his opinions. And I think it's really just another step in our acceptance of evil, in our acceptance of being okay with violence because of opinions and because of thoughts. And I don't know what this is going to lead to. I would really hope that it doesn't lead to violence, more violence from the right. I would hope we'd start to learn from some of these, but I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm really surprised the kid was taken alive, though. I'll tell you that. I thought he would have ended his own life before now. So maybe we'll get a little more information, but I also don't have a ton of confidence that we're going to know everybody that was involved, because there was quite, from what you read. So I won't even go into it, but it's going to be interesting to see if there's more to this story than just one person shooting a commentator. So Ali, you're up.
Oh man. What a sad week. What a sad thing to even say that this happened in the state of Utah, let alone in this country. When I found out, I've been a follower of Charlie's, and like you, there's some things I didn't agree with, but for the most part, I admired him because he stood up for what he believed in. You never heard him put down other religions. It was always, if you disagree with me, you're who I want to talk to. And I think he did it in a very professional way. When I found out that he got shot, I immediately went into the wife mode of that poor wife, those poor kids. How do you tell, your small kids, dad's not coming home, and then to hear, the first question that he was asked there in the state of Utah is, was kind of almost wanting to get into, religion kind of thing. And he said, I'm not here to debate religion. I love Utah. I love the Mormon church. I love the members of the church, and so on. And that struck with me. I am, excuse me, I am a member, of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I love that he was so respectful of that. It's very disappointing that it did happen in Utah, but it's also very disappointing that the country's got to this point for someone who is speaking his opinions, and I think in a very, graceful way. I too wonder what's going to happen. That night you've heard people say, there was no, burning of stores and cars, and it's very concerning of now the people that are going to step up and want to continue his journey on and continue this. I know his wife said that she wanted to continue it on. It concerns me as a mom if she does. What happens if something happens to her? You first kind of maybe want to take a step back and not be as vocal, and then as these last few days have come on, it almost makes you want to even become more vocal about just being good people. And that's been the biggest thing I've thought, since this happened, is what happened to just trying to be good people, everybody having their own opinions, everybody, freedom of speech, freedom of religion. What happened to that? Why can't we go back? And then to have it all the day before we're supposed to come together as a nation to remember 9/11, it just, I don't know. I'm really shook up with the whole thing. It's been a hard week. I don't get overly emotional, and this week has kind of done me in. It's brought a new way of thinking about, being a wife and a mom and the what ifs, I guess. If you speak too loud or speak about the wrong thing, what's going to happen? I don't know.
So KJ, you're the only not conservative of the three of us. So let's hear what you think, because you obviously had much more of a disagreement with what Charlie Kirk said. So let's hear what you think.
When we first decided that we would broach the topic of Charlie Kirk, my initial response was to approach it in a very different manner than the way I'm approaching it now, right? I understand that he was a hero to a lot of people, all right? And I get it. But I don't believe the truth is being told. I believe Charlie Kirk's legacy is being built in the same way that we have a lot of Confederate statues being built. It's being told in a revisionist past where we can, kind of look away from all the negative aspects of their legacy and just focus on the positive. Absolute tragedy that this is the state of our nation, right? But I would be remiss and I would be inauthentic to tell you that Charlie Kirk was not a friend of people who look like me. And to say anything otherwise would be disingenuous. Charlie Kirk built his platform with divisive rhetoric. Does that mean you're supposed to get killed from it? Absolutely not. I would much rather have seen him live a long and prosperous life. I respect him because he stood on what he believed. I disagree with what he believed in, and I thought it was absolutely batshit. But I can respect a man who will look you in your eye and tell you how they feel, right? I noticed a lot of, I guess, the state of the nation is, again, whitewashing his legacy, right? We cannot be honest brokers in a discussion and say with a clear heart and a clear mind that he meant goodness for everyone, because he absolutely did not.
I disagree with you.
And
I do too.
I agree. And I that doesn't surprise me, but I'm telling you from his own word. I mean, I can only take a man at his own words, right? I can't, in his post-mortem state, I cannot look and say, well, this is what he did. I can only listen to what he has said and the things that he has said in and out of context, right? Because a lot of people say, oh, well, you took that out of context, but then you go back and you listen to the entire context and it's pretty on brand, right? So when a person tells you things like, oh, well, the reason why, Black people don't have the brain capacity to do certain things, or, this, that, and the other, those kind of things, I cannot come out. I cannot show sympathy or empathy for a guy who wouldn't bat an eye, right? And I've heard a lot, right? Oh, well, Charlie had a family. Charlie had a wife and kids. And it's tragic that his wife and kids have to go through this. But you know who else had a wife and kids? George Floyd had a wife and kids. And based off of Charlie's own words, not even 24 hours after he died, Charlie showed no remorse. Charlie showed no respect for those guys. I look at Breonna Taylor, another person who passed away. Charlie did not, again, show any remorse. He took a very negative tone in the deaths of those people in my community. So to sit back on his untimely demise and to say, oh, well, I'm going to turn the other cheek, I don't have that humanistic bond in me. So what I will say is I respect that he was a hero to some, and out of respect for the people I care about who adored him, I won't say anything bad about it. But my personal belief is it's another Tuesday.
So KJ, I want to follow up with what you just said. And it says, because I asked, did Charlie Kirk say black people weren't as smart as white people? He said, yes. Charlie Kirk has made statements implying that black people, particularly black women, are less intelligent than white people. In a July 2023 clip that circulated widely on social media and in news reports, Kirk specifically criticized prominent black women, including Joy Reid, Ketanji Brown Jackson, Sheila Jackson Lee, and Michelle Obama. He claimed they advanced in their careers primarily through affirmative action because they, quote, do not have the brain processing power to otherwise be taken really seriously, unquote, and had to, quote, steal a white person's slot, unquote. This rhetoric directly ties with their supposed professional success to an inherent lack of intellectual capability compared to whites, suggesting a racial hierarchy intelligence. And I'll tell you right now, I don't agree with him on that at all. Then it doesn't mean, like you just said, that he doesn't have the right to have that opinion. And I have not seen the full clip, so I'm only going off of the instant, AI look. So I'm not going to defend a statement that he says that I disagree with, because I completely disagree with that. I currently have a boss who's a black woman who's a doctor, and she's incredible, phenomenal woman. Have never thought twice about her. Oh, well, she's black, so I shouldn't listen to her. She's not as smart. No, she's really, really smart. And when you have statements, you do have to wonder, how much of that is, and I would have to see the context of the clip, because I did not see the full clip. But even if you're somebody who's saying it's only because of DEI, if you're saying, well, I think that these women, the ones that I said, were only there because of the color of their skin, you can make that argument. But to take it the next step and say it's because they don't have the intellectual capability, I think that's where you've gone off the rails, and I'm not going to agree with you.
I will tell you that it had that been a slip up in a long legacy of, okay, hey, I may have disagreed this and the other. I've been like, all right, cool. Dude said some controversial stuff, right? I'm not one of those one. I'm not a person who will look back on a person's history with a critical lens and say, oh, well, this is where they messed up, right? I look at the totality of a man. Just as a person can do good, a person can also do evil, right? Some of our founding fathers were, inherently evil people, where they made bad decisions, but they are our founding fathers. So you can have a duality. You can have a duality.
What do you mean? What do you mean by that? Who? I'd be curious. Who you think was an inherently evil person of the founding fathers?
What I mean in terms of personality, right? So George Washington, I'll give you a prime example. George Washington, our chief founding father, right? Great guy, but also said that slavery was a necessary evil for the establishment of the country.
Because back then that was a very normal thing, though. Don't look at it through today's lens.
And I don't look at it through today's lens. But again, the enslavement of people, I can't look back. What I'm telling you is I can't look back and say, okay, well, I'm okay with that. Like, I get it. He did it. I don't hold it against him for doing it, but we can't just brush it aside and say, oh, well, he owned he owned slaves, and that's cool, because that's just what it was. Like, we have to look at it with the whole lens and say, all right, cool. Hey, man, that part they got wrong, right?
That part.
Yeah, that's not. But I'm saying that's not being negative towards anyone's legacy. Back on the person's life. Okay, hey, they got that part wrong, right? So when Charlie Kirk made the comment, one thing that was prominent about Mr. Kirk, and I'm gonna address your comment here in a minute, Mr. P. When he said, every time I get on a plane, I pray that it's not a black pilot, and I can't help but think, as soon as I get on that plane, is this guy qualified? Like to hear a person say that about you and people who look like you, automatically, no matter what your qualifications are, right?
Well, do you remember what the full context of that was?
Yeah.
He was hoping that it wasn't somebody who was not qualified, but only got the position because they were qualified. And it doesn't matter, white, black, brown, male, female, whatever.
I got it. That's what you're saying, but that's not what he said. And that is where the problem lies, right? We'll take his words and post-mortem and we'll say, oh, that's not what he meant. I don't have.
I'm not saying that's not what he meant.
No, what I'm saying is I don't have the liberty to take and examine, oh, this is what he meant. I can only take a man at his words, right? And what he said was, whenever I see a Black professional, I instantly question their qualifications or whether they were DEI higher. As an African-American man who's earned every goddamn thing I put my hard work into, I take offense to that. And I have a humanistic right to take offense to that because that's bullshit, right? And if we're being honest brokers about it, we cannot just push that side of his legacy to the side because he met an untimely demise, right? We just can't. So I got it. He said that because of DEI, but he said it because of DEI, but he was also wrong. So am I not, because he died, am I not allowed to say that, he got that part of he got that wrong?
You're absolutely allowed to say that.
And that's what I'm saying. So as a human, taking it from a holistic, humanistic approach, right? Charlie was a great guy. He was an unreasonable, generously man to the causes that he loved. He was also extremely biased toward African Americans. Two things can be true. And that does not make me any less evil or any less empathetic to his situation.
So,
right?
KJ, let me ask you something about that. Because I've seen videos where Charlie's gone out of his way to help Black people, groups of Black people that are conservative Black people. So do you think it's more that it's against Black people or people that don't share his values? Because I would tell you, I have a problem supporting people who don't share my values. I don't care what skin color they are. And so
I agree with you wholeheartedly. And then again, I go to the fact that I cannot differentiate what he says. Oh, he didn't say Black conservatives or Black liberals. What he said pretty definitively in his quotes were either one, Black men or Black women, right? That is a very specific group of people, right? So I'm telling you from the other side of the coin, liberal, Republican, all that stuff outside. At the end of the day, what happened was a tragic experience, right? And the dude died, and that shouldn't have happened. That shouldn't happen in 2025, right? But here's my biggest concern, right? We had an accident, and Mr. Kirk met his untimely demise in Utah, at University of Valley, Utah, right?
Utah Valley University.
Right. Population of Utah is of African Americans, 1.2%, right?
It's under 2%, yeah.
What would you say, Ali, and I want to ask you, if you had to put a guess on it, what would you think the probability of an African American being the shooter at that point? Where would you place that probability at?
I thought it was 0.
Very
0, right?
minimal. I mean, I don't think there would be. What was that?
I'll say a very reasonable person can assert that chances of an African American person in that college getting up on that roof with an assault rifle without being seen, and also after the shooting getting off and getting into the wood line will be very little, right? Here's my issue.
Right. No, right.
Yeah. Not even an hour after that, HBCUs started receiving death threats. So much so that they had to lock down 6 total HBCU campuses the days after Charlie Kirk's assassination, right? And I ask you, why does that always, and that goes back to what we were talking about a couple of episodes ago, right, Lance, about how Black people are always the default victim, right? When in doubt, blame the Black person, right? We can sit here, right, as reasonable people and say, without a doubt, we knew, Mauser 98, right, with a rifle, right, that was used to commit an assault.
It was basically a 30-06, yeah.
So it was a rifle that was used to commit an assault, right? So got it. So Mauser 98 to be specific. But what we can say with pretty much certainty, we knew after we heard it that it was not an African American involved.
The odds were very low, yes.
So when I ask you,
right,
why then? Because we have to face the consequences, whether we're involved or not. The default demographic to kick the shit out of is Black people, and that is where my concern comes in.
So KJ, I get your understand, but what you just said was you're presuming that reasonable people are the ones who made death threats against these HBCUs. So
You're absolutely
if you're talking about 330 million, and let's break that down. Let's go down. We've got a bunch of kids, so we're going to eliminate the kids, and we're going to and the infirm. So we'll go down to 260 million. Let's say half of those are leaning right, half of those are leaning left. So you're down to about 130 million. And then you have 6 people, or maybe even as one person, but let's go 6 HBCUs into 6, campus death threats. To me, now, and hold on.
I'll let you finish.
It is an unreasonable person to jump in logic to that. I will also say this. It's an unreasonable person who, after the death of George Floyd, went out and burnt down neighborhoods, that went out and shot streets.
I can absolutely agree with you. But let me ask you, do you know the number of liberal colleges that got shut down due to death threats over the last week?
I assume none.
None. Right? None.
And I agree. I think it's insane that anybody would have made it. I think it's insane that anybody would have gone, oh, Charlie Kirk's dead. I better call the HBCU and make a threat against them. I think that's insane. Ali thinks that's insane. You think that's insane.
Mm-hmm.
But there are crazy people out there. And it's I will take it the next step. Whoever made those threats should absolutely be charged and arrested and put on trial for making terroristic threats.
But I'm saying my whole point is the crazy people were his audience. So I'm like, I like it's one of them things where you sit back and you say, okay, cool. No matter how this goes, right? I will tell you, my first concern after hearing that he died was what's going to happen to my community because of this. Even though we knew instantly that him getting shot in a rally in Utah had absolutely nothing to do with my community. What are the consequences to my community? Because historically, what happens after an incident like this, we don't target the people that hold responsibility, right? We don't say, okay, cool, this is a liberal thing, we need to go take it at. What we do is we go straight into the most impoverished neighborhood and we go kick the shit out of them. Why? Because we're the default. And that's where my concern comes in at.
So let me ask you this. George Floyd gets killed, right?
Yes.
And by the way, this is something we've talked about when they say justice for George Floyd. It's a ridiculous chant. No, it's revenge for George Floyd, okay? Because justice was done. The guy who was on his neck is in prison right now. But we probably this week, if Charlie Kirk had not been shot, we'd probably be talking about Irina Zarutska, who was a Ukrainian 22-year-old blonde, white hair, cute girl that had escaped Ukraine and is stabbed to death on a train in Charlotte. And I don't like the whataboutism, but at the same time, there is a fairly valid point. She is stabbed to death by a guy who had 14 felonies, who had been let out, was not in prison like he should have been, who was off his meds, who had been given multiple welfare, wellness checks, to the point that he had told police that the authorities have implanted things in his neck and in his brain to make him think these ways. And the fact that he's black, to me, is just a side note. The real thing is he was crazy and wasn't put in jail or institutionalized.
I agree with you. And here's the thing. He wasn't let out because he was black.
No, I don't think he was let out because he was black.
That's what I'm saying. But the rhetoric, what I'm saying is the rhetoric and the story that's being pushed is, oh, this was a black man that was given too much leniency. The only reason
I think it was a felon that was given up too much leniency. But I will say this, KJ, I think there is a very good chance, because if you look at the video, there was the person who stabbed was black. The lady right across the thing, and I don't blame the lady across the way who was black not getting involved. Just
I wouldn't expect the lady to, but
yeah. There's a dude with a knife.
There were several men that were
right.
I think we're all in agreement that those men.
I don't blame them.
More active role in protecting that young lady.
But KJ, what do you think? Because we know what happened in the white community with this young woman. Mm-hmm. Nothing happened in the white community outside of verbal outrage.
Sure.
If you'd had a young 22-year-old black woman who was stabbed on video by a white guy who had been let out of jail, 14 felonies, I think it's safe to say we might have seen a little more explosive response. Now, I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm definitely saying it's wrong.
I don't disagree, but I expect the same thing. But it's the same thing that you expect in a white community when a black person is being accosted, right? My point is it's not a matter of who or what. It's a matter of circumstance and where we are as a society, right?
So hold on. I want to address this.
Yeah.
Now, real quick though, I want to put this one up specifically. Okay. Now, Ali, I don't know if this is your husband, if you know him or who it is, but I do want to make this point because as a former MP, KJ and I have talked about this, but I think it's a good thing for me to reiterate on George Floyd. George Floyd, I was all in on the cop. I was like, you know what? I give 100% benefit of the doubt to a police officer doing their job, unless they clearly show that they were doing something wrong. I've been trained military police. I know how to put my knee on somebody's back. Training issue was bad, whatever it was. But ultimately, here's what it comes down to. And this is where I agreed with the prosecutor. Whatever George Floyd, and I saw the whole video. I'd gone back. I watched the whole 25-minute video. It wasn't just a little snippet. And I watched the entire thing. And when the prosecutor said this, he was on fentanyl. He had alcohol in his system. He didn't want to get into the vehicle. They laid him down and the guy's knee was on his back. And when he said, and he was handcuffed. And the prosecutor said, if that police officer had simply moved his knee where George Floyd was no longer a threat, George Floyd would not be dead. And I went, you know what? Yeah, he's guilty of involuntary manslaughter at least. Because if he was laying on the ground and he had his handcuffs, hands behind his back, and he was just laying there and nothing else, and he died because of asphyxiation, I would have said, well, yeah, they probably should have listened to him, called a bus, called an ambulance, which they should have done anyway. But if he hadn't had his knee on his back, so to me, I gotta say, I don't agree with the idea that he died of a massive fentanyl overdose. That may have been absolutely a contributing factor, but the fact of the matter is, if Chavin, I believe is the officer's name, if he had removed his knee, Chavin not removing his knee not only caused a death, but it caused $1 billion worth of property damage. At the very least, as a police officer, you have to be thinking, not, hey, I'm going to let him up. I'm going to unhook him. He was handcuffed. He was not. Okay, they called an ambulance, but his knee was on his back the entire time until the last neck. On his neck and back area until basically he passed out. So I disagree with you on that one, Salty War Pig, because I've watched the video and I don't mean to take that off on a tangent, but there's a big difference between a police officer using poor training or poor tactics versus somebody getting up and stabbing somebody in the neck or climbing up on a roof and taking out a Mauser or a 30-06 or an AR-15 or whatever you want to use and shooting somebody because of what they believe. Now, you can say that George Floyd was in the middle of a, whatever you want to say, the fraud investigation, all that stuff, fine. I mean, that's, at the very least, it was a misdemeanor. Should not have died because of a misdemeanor, but very different But the other thing is this: there was a very, and I think this unfortunately is, I don't know if it's telling because I don't know, but the community from the white side of the community has not gone out and rioted on behalf of Charlie Kirk. There have been no riots against the left, nor should there be. I don't know why you would riot to begin with. I don't think there should be riots. But KJ, one of the tough things that you're saying is, A, it's wrong that HBCUs were targeted at all because they had nothing to do with it. B, what sucks in general for me, having you as a friend and having the students that I teach are mostly African American, is that you can KG, I can look at you and I immediately say, well, you're black. I mean, it's pretty obvious. I think you'd probably be okay. You'd be okay with that, right? You'd say, yeah, I'm black. Yeah. Somebody looks at me, they know it. It's very difficult to look at somebody and go, oh, you're a piece of shit racist. Oh, you're a piece of crap fascist. Oh, you're a piece of crap communist, right? So unfortunately, I do think that's where the African American community gets that target from. As unfair as it is, people go for the easiest target. And unfortunately, the black community, a lot of times, like you just said, is the easiest target just because it's seen. It's not right. Not saying it's right at all. I think
ultimately, you can hide being a fascist. You can hide being a racist, right? You can hide everything behind honest intentions. I cannot hide being black. Right. It just is what it is. And so there was riots, not to the degree of George Floyd or anything like that, but there was riots? Yeah, in Idaho, there was a disturbance to where a couple of people got injured and a visual.
Oh, I didn't say anything, but
another one.
I've also been way less plugged in over the last
you can't expect a significant event like Charlie Kirk was beloved in his community, right? So you expect a emotional response, right? I've seen posts where people have compared him to Dr. King and this, that, and the other, right? Now,
that's not fair to Dr. King.
Listen, in Charlie Kirk's own words, he was not a fan of Dr. King. So to compare the two would be, disrespectful to Mr. Kirk. But what I would like to believe is what they're saying is the impact he had on a generation is similar to what Dr. King had on the nation, right? And I think that's a fair assessment without going overboard, right?
That's probably somewhat fair. Sure.
I think what he wanted to do, I think a big thing that Charlie wanted to do though, is he wanted people to start talking. Like there's so much just attack, the right attacking the left attacking the right. Everybody's like attacking everybody for everything. And I think one thing that I admired him about is the fact that he wanted people to start talking respectfully to each other, have these hard conversations that a lot of people tend not to want to do, because it's like you don't want to be over maybe a simple opinion. You don't want somebody to take it to the extreme and say, hey, you're a racist. I've been called a racist so much, and it's like, I'm not a racist. And I think he wanted people to actually start talking. And, I know there's a lot of people that did disagree with him and some of his beliefs, and you know what, and that's fine. That's what makes us Americans. And y'all don't need to agree with me, I don't need to agree with you, but we have to have mutual respect. And that's, I think, the problem where this country stays right now, is we have lost so much respect for each other. We've lost respect for freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom, like all those freedoms. It's like nobody gives two craps about anymore, and you find yourself, everybody lives on the defensive side. People are scared to step in and help. Like, when that gal you know, when she was stabbed. Everybody was scared to do anything for what may happen to them, or if I do step in and help, am I going to be arrested because I did step in? And it's just sad that this country is just turning like this, and not just recently, but it seems like it's been on the, I don't know, the downhill for a while, that everybody's just out to get everybody, and it's so sad. And you know, the fact that, you know, Charlie, you know, that he was murdered, and he was murdered, like you said, for his beliefs, for what he believed in. I've heard a lot of positive too come out of it, you know, where, you know, more people, you know, if you're religious, more people went to church this week. You know, hey, I'm thankful for my family. I'm thank you for God in my life. I'm thank you for Jesus. And more people maybe had a little more, I don't know, realization that, you know what, if somebody that's not technically a politician, but was very vocal about politics, can be murdered for stating his opinion, you know, what happens if I get really opinionated in my community? Am I going to get shot? Is my family going to be hurt? And I think it's sad that everybody's thinking this way. You know, but I get why people are thinking this way. I get, you know, but it's sad that I just feel like everybody's out to get everybody. And I think somehow it's got to be reeled in, and just everybody needs to learn respect. And I don't think there is at all. I don't think there's respect for life. I don't think there's respect for differences in opinions or difference in life or living situation. It's just everybody's out to get everybody. It's sad.
Yeah,
it's
I
infuriating, actually, on so many levels.
I agree. There is a degradation in society to where people are, you know, you're either going to be a racist, or you're going to be a bootlicker, or you're going to be, you know, you're somebody's liberal, depending on, you know, how you feel that morning. You're either going to be somebody's bleeding heart liberal, or some, you know, Trump loving Republican. And you could just be, you know, a normal person, like, all right, well, I see it this way on this particular issue. And that's why I had to take some time and reflect, because initially with the whole Charlie Kirk thing, like I said, it's one of them things where it's like, hey, you know, your platform, and you know, again, he used this platform and he spoke to the ears of that what I believe to be the you know, the most existential threat in America today, which is Christian nationalism. And he used that to go to the lowest common denominator. When all else fails, we have a common denominator, and that's to hate the blacks. Right. And he went to that well whenever he needed to. And it's unfortunate. Right. I feel bad for him. You know, I feel bad for his family. But yeah, man, I feel even worse for the people who have to deal with the results of the put out. Right. Because immediately what you heard was, oh, it's a civil war. They want war. They want war. They want war. Right. This is just the next exciting incident for the, you know, that radical 10% on each side to call for war and destabilization. And it's just, you know, the rest of us, the 80% who are just trying to live lives, right? I have this saying where we say, you know, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness finally, right? If we just get to a point that we say, okay, hey, look, man, you do you, I do me. And as Lance like to say, your rights end where they infringe on my freedoms, right? And if we can all get to that point to where it's like, hey, I don't care what you do, enjoy what you do, just do it over there and leave me the hell alone, we'd be better off in society. But we can't. You have to have somebody
just try and be good people.
Yeah.
Just
Well,
try and be a good person. Like, it's, you know, it's like help your fellow men. And it, you know, you want it to be, it's not about skin color. It's not about, you know, religion. It's not about any of that. It's just be a freaking good person. You know, for me, and this is very personal for me, you know, I want to live my life as Christ-like as I can. I will never judge anybody at all for their political stance, for their color of skin, for what they believe. You know, when I don't even like to say the word judge, but when I'm looking at somebody's character, it's like, you know what? Are you just a good person? You know, are you Are you a loving person? That's what matters to, that's what matters to me. And like I said just a few minutes ago, it's like, that's not, and I have a huge concern right now, and I don't know, I don't have all the details. I was just hearing little snippets throughout the day, but apparently the shooter that killed Charlie apparently is in a relationship, and I hate to even bring it up, supposedly with a transgender. So now the worries go in my head, what's going to happen as far as now, if this comes out, this is true, what's going to happen as far as that? What type of retaliation is going to come out from that? If this is, I don't know.
Yeah.
This is just, it's so wrong on so many levels. And I'm afraid this is going to spiral. And, the wounds are still so fresh right now. Nobody was expecting for Charlie Kirk to, be there and expressing his, debates and his opinions, and to have somebody, a 31-year-old man, lost his life. Okay. I don't think anybody was expecting that. I think the wounds are still really fresh. And for me also, this all happening the day before 9/11, which is, for me anyway, is just a really sad day, even though it was 24 years ago. And it just seems like there's just one thing after the other over the past week. And it's like, when is people going to take someone's life seriously and realize it's not just an opinion? This is someone's father, mother, child, husband. And not just with Charlie, with everything that's happening. I mean, it's so pathetic that, the attitudes of some, and then to have these people, like right after the shooting happened, you saw that video, this little snippet of a guy cheering, why, Charlie's trying to get help and he's bleeding out, and you see that guy going like, yeah, we got him. Like, really? Like,
Yeah,
that's what this nation has become, is someone's dying out in front of his family and you're cheering this on, and you're, it's like, what has happened? Like,
Well,
it's terribly concerning.
But let's be careful again. I think KJ makes a good point. We've talked about this before. That one guy in a crowd of 500, 600 people, he's the one a-hole that we can all point to. It doesn't mean that the entire country is like that. And I think KJ makes a point that 80% of us just want to, probably more. I think 95% of us just want to be left alone. I'm gonna put a comment here just so I don't forget it. But okay, so I don't know why it pops up through 8 different things, but this is what we were talking about a little bit ago. Is we have this idea that we don't respect each other and all that. But there's also a point where, you know what? If somebody wants to disrespect me, we also have the right to say, okay, I don't care if you respect me or not. If you're not doing something, there's a big difference between, I think you're a piece of crap. Okay, cool. And there are times where I definitely probably am a piece of crap. The only people that I've truly gotten mad at in the past good 5 years have been people that have actively gone out of their way to try to end my career based on fabrication. And if somebody is so offended that Charlie Kirk is saying something about, let's go, KJ, you are so ticked off at Charlie Kirk that about what he said about black people, you have 2 choices. Your choice is either to go, F him, I'm going to do something about it. Or you go, well, F him, but he's wrong. So too bad for him. I don't care. And I get it. I mean, there's obviously the range in between. And KJ, I'm sure you're the type of person who says, so I don't know, Thad. I mean, realistically, everything, Thad, at the same time, we can go back and say, everything policy is based on somebody bringing it up and someone there. If you think Charlie Kirk had that much power, that he's the only, the fact that Trump got elected on a lot of these things that Charlie Kirk espoused or whoever, I mean, I get it, but for example, just because I want closed border doesn't mean I'm a racist. Just because I don't agree with the transgender movement doesn't mean I hate transgender people or don't think they should exist.
Well, let's be intellectually honest here. Charlie Kirk did his fair share of spreading misinformation about the Black community, right? Like he knew how to play to the audience to rev up stuff, right? Like, oh, you're 30% more likely to be attacked by a Black man where you're in the Black community. Well, yeah, just like when you're in Utah, you're exponentially more likely to get killed by a white person. That's
what were the odds by that though? What were the odds Charlie Kirk was going to get shot by a gay man in Utah? My guess is the rate of homosexuality out in Salt Lake is probably not all that big. But I did see something I thought was actually very, very interesting. And I thought I saw this idea that because the shooter was raised LDS from a conservative home, that shows you that even somebody who's a conservative, raised in a conservative Republican household, can go out and kill somebody. And the response was, well, yeah, that's what people on the left have been espousing for years, is that if you are a conservative and you're in a white household, you're wrong or innately wrong for something you've done or your ancestry has done. KJ, you and I have talked this. You probably have more slave owners in your background than I do at some point.
I do, but yeah. I do. I mean, that's
yeah.
I do.
But the fact of the matter is, like, if you have people who vote for policies and representative government, and everything we've talked about on Two Pogs is how do we fix this? Well, the first thing is, whether you agree with Charlie Kirk or not, I appreciate that, KJ, if you went to one of his rallies and he said, if you could have gone right up to the front and you could have said, you know what? I think you're full of crap about what you said. And I think it would have been great. I would have loved to see you up at the front of that crowd saying, hey, tell me why you think that, because I think it's a load of crap. So you think my career of what I've done is because of DEI or because of my skin color or whatever? I would have loved for you to do that.
And so I did, I used to listen to him here and there periodically, but over the last week, I wanted to make sure, especially knowing that we were going to talk about this, and I got to go back a couple of comments too in a minute, but sure. I went back, and his biggest thing was when minorities excel, they are an exception to the rule, right? They are not the norm, right? I
think when anybody excels, they're an exception to the norm because there aren't that many people that truly excel.
Right, but the bar of excellence was different in his eyes, right? So for him, if a guy came from an impoverished background and joined the military for say, and got a degree and that sort of thing, I made good decisions, right? But he didn't take into all the accounts. Like we've talked about this, extensively. Science has proven that every socioeconomic issue is not just black and white, right? There's all
socioeconomic.
There's different layers to why a person, is successful or not. But it made it to a point to where people, and it goes back to, I need someone to blame, right? And too often his argument kind of fell down to the basis of, well, in America, if you didn't succeed, or it's because one, you're too dumb, or two, it's because you're too lazy, right? And we know that that's just not true. But I want to go back to
that is a pretty good way to boil it down for people who don't succeed in general, though.
Except
whether you're white, black, brown,
that
whatever.
See, that's the caveat.
Mhm.
Whether you are white, black, or brown. But his point was, as a minority, if you're not succeeding, the only reason you're not succeeding is because you're too dumb or too lazy, right? Whereas the leniency was for, oh, if you're a white guy and, you know, it just takes time and this, that, and the other. So that was the nuance in his platform, right? It was always an issue in it. And that's where
I'll take your word for it, because to me that's a silly argument, because if you're dumb and lazy, I don't know anybody who's dumb and lazy who succeeds outside of they pick the right tickets to win the lottery.
Right. But in a minute. So Salty Wall Pig said something about the bullets coming from one side a couple of minutes ago, right? And I try my best to be, you know, neutral and call a spade on this show, right? You know, the governor's house, was it Brashear in Kentucky that got firebombed? Oh no, it was in Pennsylvania.
That was a far left, but that's a bad example, because that was a far left Palestinian supporter who firebombed.
Everybody's not far left. The dude
that one was
the dude that shot the Minnesota state reps. Were they far left too?
No. That guy. That's the weird one. I went and looked that up yesterday. They still what I'm going to say is they still don't have a reason, which to me is like, how do we still not have a reason for a guy going knocking on a door and shooting three? I think it was three. He went and knocked one door, killed the state senator and her husband, and then also went and killed another one. It's like, how do we still not know what the motive for that was?
Right. But hold on, I'm not done though. The guy who bashed Nancy Pelosi's husband's head in, was he a conservative? Was he a far left radical too?
I think with him, again, it was a mental illness one. Didn't we figure? Isn't that what they said?
But what my point is, Charlie Kirk then
blamed it on Democrats. Yeah,
celebrated that, blamed it on Democrats, and said Republicans and conservatives should post bail for him. Now, the guys that kidnapped
hold on, that part is not actually true. He didn't. I went and double checked that. He did not ever. He did blame the Minnesota shooting on Democrats originally, and he never retracted it, which he was wrong, because it was not a Democrat. But he did not ever tell his audience or anybody else
advocate for it explicitly, and that's the point.
But he never told anybody to go to bail out the Pelosi guy. That's a fabrication. I went and looked it up.
So and then we go back to the kidnapping of the governor in Michigan. Was that all?
I'm really curious on that one, because everything I've read is there were more FBI informants in the room than anybody else.
Fair enough. All right. So, and then to wrap it all up, you're right, Salty Pig, and that's the point that we're making, right? It's not the majority, right? I can look at you eye to eye, human to human, and I have a unfounded mutual respect as a human being, right? If I see you, I'm going to greet you, and I'm not going to think any less of you, right? Far too often, that respect and that mutual basis of humanistic, you know, I guess we can say respect, right, is not returned, right? So, and that's where we have an issue. And it goes back to my whole premise of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Finally, a lot of our issues in today's society, I believe, can be alleviated if we just go to the whole point of, hey, leave me the fuck alone. And that, excuse my crassness, because we do have Ali on here, and I do apologize for my crassness. But ultimately, that's what it boils down to.
Thank you, but you're fine.
Ultimately, that's what it boils down to. If we just say, hey, man, leave me the fuck alone, and let me, if I succeed, great, I did it. And if I fail, I deserve every bit of that. And I'm willing as a man to stand 10 toes down and bet on myself. But I can't, you know what I'm saying? We cannot get to that point, and that's the issue. I guess that's the overarching issue.
Hey, so KJ, we are going to keep talking about this. We're going to I'm going to hit the button here in a second. So if you want to stay on and keep it, we're probably going to go for about 30 more minutes at max, because some of us still have to get up super early again. One horrible for the other. So stay on if you want to stay on. But for those of you who are on the other stream, we'll see you next week.
Gee, Ray, what do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
All right, yo, let's get into it.
Try to take over the world.
Preaching freedom
Try
of
to
gospel.
take over the world.
And greatest chaplain in the world, Mr.
Try
Lance
to
O'Neill.
take over the world.